Good morning. We're glad to have you here today. We appreciate each one of you. Looks like I'm going to be the song leader, at least right now. So let's turn to 299. 299, and we'll get started with our Sunday school. I'm glad to have Dwayne Castile here today. Dwayne is with the disaster relief program that we have in the Churches of Christ, and he's going to give us a report on their work. He's got a display table out here that has some information on it. It also has some pocket type calendars, I think is what that is, for 26, and they're free. So if you'd like to have one, feel free to take one. And there's some pens out there too. I still use some of the pens that you had before. But we're glad to have Dwayne and his good wife here. Betty? Okay. So we're glad to have them today. So he's going to be teaching our Sunday school class, and also we'll be bringing our lesson this morning, and then this afternoon I'll have the lesson for this afternoon. We do want to get started with our class and everything, and have a prayer before we begin. And Brent, would you lead us in a prayer, please? Amen. All right. Number 289. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Give a signal if you hear our message. Okay. Okay. Got it. Good. We hope it always goes out. We're glad to have you here, and hope that you'll be able to come in with us before too long. So that's good. Number 299, I have decided to follow Jesus. 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 No turning back, no turning back. Though not go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. No turning back, no turning back. My cross I'll carry till I see Jesus. My cross I'll carry see Jesus, my cross I'll carry, till I see Jesus, no turning back, no here. All right. We are, again, glad that you're here. I think recently we've started singing one song and then going to class. That gives our teachers a little bit longer to get their message across, and I know that they appreciate that. I do when I teach on Wednesday nights. But Brother Dwayne, we're glad to have you, and if you want to preach from here, you can. If you want to preach from there, you can. Whichever you want to do as far as class, okay? And if you need to, go ahead and put this up on your time. Whatever.
Oh, good morning. Betty and I appreciate the opportunity to stop by and visit with you. I don't know who checks on the building from time to time, but occasionally I'm traveling down I-64 going someplace, and if I have time, I cut across here and I leave a bag with some material on the door. So I don't know who's been getting that, but it's just something I do. If I have time, I stop by and visit churches. If I catch somebody there, we'll stop and visit a while. But if there's nobody there, I'll leave something on the door, let you know a little bit about disaster relief. Friday, we drove over to Mount Sterling. We left Charlestown, West Virginia, with the sun shining. Before long, it began to rain. We got up in the mountains, it began to snow. The wind had been blowing pretty fiercely, and the temperature dropped, and it quit snowing, but it was raining, and we had freezing rain. So we drove in all kind of weather coming across Friday, coming over. And I understand last weekend, you had some good weather. We were where were we last week? Johnson City, Tennessee, and Bristol, Virginia. We didn't have snow, but we had some cold weather and a heavy frost on the car. And it's that time of the year. Talking to Betty yesterday, I said, do you realize this is the third weekend we've been gone? We were in Maryland, we were in Virginia, now we're over here in Kentucky. But we're going to stay home next weekend, hopefully. And then the following weekend, I've got to leave to go to Nashville for a staff meeting. Twice a year, we come to Nashville. There's a staff of 9 people who work in Nashville. That's the warehouse personnel, the secretaries, the 2 guys that keeps everything going. And then there's 5 of us scattered around the country doing what I'm doing this morning. We visit churches, we go to conferences, lectureships, seminars, or whatever, set up our displays. Sometimes we get to speak. If we don't, at least we're there and we distribute material and talk to people all the time. But the 1st of January and the 1st of August, the 5 of us from Washington State, Missouri, Louisiana, North Carolina, and West Virginia, we make the trip to Nashville. We spend a day and a half with the staff there talking about this work. How can we do a better job? How can we improve? How can we become more efficient? How can we stretch the donations that's given to us farther than what we've been able to do so? So in a couple of weeks, we'll be in Nashville for that conference or that meeting. And we always look forward to that because when you got a coworker in Washington State, you don't get to see him very often. It's a long ways out there. And so it's good when we all get together in Nashville and spend some time together. We've been around since 1990. Started out calling it the Nashville Disaster Relief. And then they changed the name pretty quickly to Tennessee Disaster Relief. And they said, well, we're going to work throughout all the United States, so we need a better name. And so just call it Churches of Christ Disaster Relief Effort. Since then, through October the 23rd, somebody in the office had gone back through all the records, did a little calculating, and discovered we had sent a little better, and this is in October, a little better than $204 million of relief supplies to churches following disasters. And we did that without any government assistance. We did it because of the generosity of churches and individuals who saw this work and said, we want to participate with it. We have delivered supplies to congregations in every state in the union, except for 3. Alaska, we've never been to Alaska. Even though we've been working with them lately, you know, they had the typhoon that dislocated over 1,000 people that had to be evacuated to Fairbanks because their homes were destroyed and winter was coming on. So we've been trying to work something out. How can we help these people while they're dislocated, and especially when they get to go back home? So we haven't been to Alaska, we haven't been to Montana, and we haven't been to Delaware, but we have been to Hawaii. We didn't send a truck out there. There's been a couple of times they've had disasters, and we contacted the church there, and they said, yes, we need help. What we need is available. We just don't have the funding to buy it. And so we wire money out to them. And the fires at Maui, I think we sent a couple of times, total of $35,000 to help the church in Maui, to help those people whose homes were lost. So we just want to do what we can do. Let me give you a summary, and on the table down the foyer, if you're not that familiar with us, take one of these and look at it. It's a brief introduction to us. Share it with other people. The yellow sheet is a summary of what we've done this year through November. We did 223 shipments of supplies to 59 different townships in 18 different states with a financial value of $5 million. It's been a slow year, and we're thankful for that. We didn't have a hurricane to hit the United States this year. First time since 2015 that we didn't have a hurricane. Of course, last year made up for this year with just what Helene did. But take one of these sheets, it's a summary, and on the inside of it, it's broken down state by state. And what I want you to notice, excuse me, since we're here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, that we've delivered $1,384,374 of relief supplies to churches in Kentucky this year. If you open it up and look at it inside, most of it was the flooding back in the spring. And regretfully, some of the places where we assisted this year with flooding, 2 years ago, we had assisted them with flooding. And then there were a couple of tornadoes that hit in the Commonwealth, I think in London, Somerset, and seems like it's someplace else. But anyway, your state has suffered a lot this year with disasters. And we were glad that we could respond and assist them to assist people who lost things. In Matthew chapter 25, Jesus talks about the judgment. Talks about when all the nations are going to be gathered together, and he's going to separate us as a shepherd would separate the sheep from the goat. And the basis of that separation, and you look at Matthew 25, was did you do this or did you not do it? John Miller. John has been with Disaster Relief since its very beginning. John used to preach over in the Ohio Valley in West Virginia and Ohio. And I went with him to speak to 2 or 3 churches about disaster relief a few years ago. And John made a statement I had never thought of in that way. He said, you look at Matthew 25, and you think about what it says, and he would say, will you pass the test? No, what test, John? Jesus said, did you feed me? Did you clothe me? Did you give me a drink? Did you visit me? Did you take me in? He says, a test that we must pass. That's not the only thing. But yet, I think Jesus emphasized it so much in Matthew 25 that we need to be concerned about people who are in need. Those on the right hand, he said, they're over here because when I was hungry, you fed me, and he went through the list. And I said, Lord, when did we do that to you? When did we see you that way? He said, when you did it to the least of these. I got a tickle in my throat and it won't go away. And then to the ones on the left, he said, you did not feed me when I was hungry. You did not give me drink when I was thirsty. You did not clothe me when I was naked. You did not visit me when I was sick or in prison. You did not take me in. Well, Lord, when did we see you like that? And he said, when you failed to do it to the least of these, you failed to do it to me. So basically what Jesus is saying, we need to minister to people, and as we do, we minister to him. And if we fail to minister to people, we fail to minister to him. So that's every day. And we have those opportunities every day. I'm going to ask you to twist the lid off, because I probably can't. Thank you. I've gotten old and I have no strength in my hands. I can't uncap anything. But since he places such a great emphasis on ministering to people in their times of need, how much more so when there's a disaster and people are not hungry or thirsty or things simply because maybe they become unemployed, but simply because they lost everything. I've often wondered, Betty travels with me now more than she used to. I've gotten older and I had to have somebody to go with me to take care of me. But I used to think, if I was on a trip and I'd get word from Betty back home and said, we had a tornado in town, did you know that? We lost our house. We lost our car. Well, I'm okay. Didn't kill me. I'm not injured, but we lost everything. And I've often thought, what would I do? How would I respond to that? Probably in shock if such a thing would happen. I might even say, Lord, why did you let it happen to me or to my family? Then I might become more reasonable and look around and say, Lord, there's people who lost more than I did. Some people lost loved ones. Some people were injured. They didn't just lose property. What can I do to help them with what I have? And I think that's the attitude that we ought to manifest. And that's what we do with disaster relief. This morning, driving over from Mount Sterling. I don't know how many those bucket trucks that the power companies use to work on power lines. I don't know how many of those we met. We pulled in the parking lot. I got on the internet and tried to find out what's something going on west of here. And I couldn't find anything. And I asked, and I hadn't heard anything. But we try to be aware if events happen, if disasters happen. All of us try to keep up with it in our part of the country and the other parts as well. I want to blame this on something in this building that's affecting me. Could have said someone, but when we see a disaster taking place, we contact the congregation near there, and we ask, is it as bad as the news media says it is? Sometimes they say, no, it's not really that bad. We can take care of things. Other times they say, the devastation is so bad, we're going to need a lot of assistance to help people. Well, do you want a 53-foot trailer? I've got a model of our truck on the table. We can load that and have it on the road to you within hours if you need it. And they say, yes, we need it. Get it on the road. Well, do you have a place you can unload it? A lot of stuff's on the 53-foot trailer. Will you have volunteers there to unload it when it arrives? Because our truck driver is going to come by himself. He can't unload the truck. And I said, well, we'll have it. And so we set up a schedule. And folks down in Niceville load the truck. Let me give you an idea of how quickly this can be done. A year or so ago, had tornadoes up in Michigan. They'd never had a tornado in upper Michigan. And I contacted the church there, contacted the preacher, and I said, how bad is it? And he said, we really don't know, but by Sunday, we will know what the situation is, and our elders will meet, and they'll decide if we need help or don't need help. So I'd been somewhere like today. I'd spoken Sunday morning. I'm driving home on Sunday afternoon, and about 3 o'clock, my phone rings. It's the preacher from Gaylord, Michigan. He said, how soon can you get a truck to us? I said, well, that has to be worked out with folks in Nashville. I said, I'll call Mike Lewis, and I'll give him your name and phone number, and Mike will call you. Well, the normal hours for people to work in Nashville are Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This is Sunday afternoon. Nobody's working on Sunday. But I call Mike and tell him, and he calls the preacher and set it up. Make a long story short, the preacher called me at 3 o'clock. The truck left Nashville at 6:30. Mike had to find a truck driver, and all of our drivers are volunteers. He had to get somebody from the warehouse to load the truck. Somebody had to do the paperwork that was necessary, but all of that was done within 3.5 hours from the time that the preacher in Michigan gave me a call. What was it, 3 years ago, you had tornadoes over in the western part of the Kentucky. They happened on Friday night and Saturday morning. Our first truck was unloaded in Mayfield Saturday afternoon. Of course, that's close to Nashville. It didn't take long to get there. But what I'm saying is we can respond very quickly. And we've had people to tell us that your truck has gotten here before Red Cross, before FEMA, before anybody else. Well, that's what we want to do. We want to be prepared so we can respond that way and be on the scene helping people as soon as we possibly can. You might say, well, Dwayne, what do you put on that truck? If you look at the yellow sheet, that truckload of supplies will run $80,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood. 20 years ago, when I first started doing this, the value of that truckload of supplies was $35,000, $40,000. Now it's $75,000 to $80,000. So inflation's always been with us, and it just costs more than it used to. But anyway, we put 300 food boxes on the truck. These are big boxes with a variety of canned and boxed foods, with disposable plates and cups and things you need to eat. There's enough to feed a family of 4 for about a week. So we also put bottled water on. Almost every disaster, the water system's affected one way or another. Always need bottled water. We put infant boxes on. You know, if you have a baby and everything got burned up, blown away, or washed away, you got to take care of the baby. So we put baby boxes on to take care of that. We put personal hygiene boxes, everything that both male and female uses, take care of the physical body. Put those on. We put cleaning materials on. Cleaning bucket with supplies in it and additional bleach and detergents. We put mops and brooms, shovels and rakes, wheelbarrows, work gloves, dust masks, heavy duty garbage bags, things to help clean up after whatever the disaster has been. And in addition to that, we'll put, if it's been a tornado or hurricane, we'll put a lot of tarpaulins on. If it's been flooding, put a lot of box fans on. Put new sheets, new quilts, new blankets, new pillows, new clothing, new shoes. We just put things on that truck to help people to survive who has lost so much. Now, the reason Betty and I drove over Friday and come to Mount Sterling, some of you know Shirley Johnson. Shirley does a lot of quilting, and she has other people does the same thing. And about twice a year, she'll call me and say, Dwayne, when are you coming by this way? Got some quilts for you. And she called me a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I don't have anything on my schedule. And then I thought, well, I hadn't been to Owensville in a long time. So I called, and you folks graciously said, come and be with us. And so we drove over Friday. We picked up the quilts yesterday and here this morning. But those quilts will be put on a truck just like the blankets. And I don't know about you, but if I'm on the receiving end and a member of the church says, I've got a homemade quilt here and I've got a store-bought blanket, which do you want? Give me the quilt. That's just me. Give me the quilt. Maybe that's non-Christian, but I prefer the quilt over the blanket. But we make those available to help people just to survive from the disaster. Now, I've been talking and coughing for 20 or 25 minutes. Do you have any questions or comments? Let me come back closer. I don't hear real well. Even with a hearing aid, I don't hear. That might have been before my time. And I know Helene last year, the hurricane that hit Florida, and just kept going up through Georgia and the Carolinas, even into southern Virginia, East Tennessee. The first 3 churches that we contacted down in Florida, been hit by that storm, and then hit by another one just a year before. But that's horrible. Community gets hit by a hurricane, and you're later get hit by one that's even more forceful and strong. And we responded to both of them. Matter of fact, to Helene, the folks in Niceville were able to get 23 truckloads of supplies out in 25 days. Think about that. 23 truckloads from Florida to Georgia to the Carolinas to East Tennessee to Southern Virginia in 25 days. Our facilities are 86,000 square feet. And we try to keep enough supplies that we can load 40 trucks. And as we begin to send trucks out, when the supplies get down to where we only have 20 loads left, we start ordering to replenish things. Now, if we had not had 40 truckloads of supplies last year, when Helene and all hit, we would have really struggled to help people. Go back to the pandemic, when everything changed. Churches weren't meeting. A lot of people were not working. We did not close. We did not shut down. We had to change some things. But every time that there was a disaster and a congregation needed help, we were able to respond. Now, we did it because of a lot of volunteers. Of course, a lot of volunteers enable us to do everything we do. But those food boxes I talked about, normally one day we'll pack food boxes. And we'll have 200 or more people in there, and they'll pack 1,500 of them in 2 hours. Well, during the pandemic, we couldn't have 200 people in. We could only have 10 or 12. And so the folks in Niceville contacted the churches in the area. Can you send us a team of 10 or 12 people that can give us 2 or 3 hours to pack food boxes? And we were able to keep the supplies up and able to meet all the needs that were there. And 2 other questions that entered our mind during this time was, since so many people are not working, will we have the financial support to continue to do what we're doing? The year of the pandemic that everybody was closed and everything was shut down, our donations were more than the previous years. So we didn't have to worry about finances. What about when we send supplies out to a church? How are they going to distribute it when you don't supposed to have a bunch of people together? And almost all of them set up a parking lot distribution. Folks would pull in the parking lot, somebody would meet them at their vehicle, get all the information they needed, hand that to a runner, and he goes and he gets everything together that these people need. By the time they get to the other end of the parking lot, they've got the things there. They pop the trunk, they open the back of the van, whatever, and they load it. These people even hadn't need to get out of their vehicle. So churches worked it all out to where we could still minister to people. Other comments? Yeah, we have a staff of 9 people in Nashville. 9 people could not keep things running and load 23 trucks in 25 days. So we have a lot of volunteers. Volunteers are there. The food boxes are a special deal, but we have volunteers every day who are packing the cleaning buckets, the baby boxes, the hygiene boxes, and then when there's a great need, A phone call will go out and people will come in and help. There was one time we had more people than we could use. Now that's something. More volunteers showed up than we had something for them to do. More than we were allowed to have in our building at one time. I had to turn some people away. It's good that many people showed up, but it's bad that we had to turn some people away, because if I drove 50 miles to help and I didn't get to help, I might hesitate to drive 50 miles another time. But we always have enough volunteers. Without them, we couldn't do what we do. That also enables us financially to do what we do. A donation to us, when it goes in our bank account, the purchasing power of it triples or more. We can buy 3 times than what you can buy with the money, or maybe more than 3 times as much. In other words, what you could buy with $100, we could buy $300 of supplies with that 100. And the other thing is, all the donations that come to us, 85 to 87% as a rule reaches survivors of disasters. Our overhead never gets beyond 15%. And there have been times, and it fluctuates because of the number of disasters we respond to and the amount of donations we get. And one year when the auditors finished up, they said, "Do you realize 94% of every dollar you received reached disaster survivors? It only costs 6% of the donations to keep this operation going." And that's paying a salary to 14 people. Nobody gets a 6-figure salary. If anybody gets that, I want to know, because I've been there longer than most people. I want it. Matter of fact, I've been there longer than everybody except two men in the warehouse. And the reason they outdo me, they worked there when they were in high school. And then got out of school, they come over and started working full time. But everybody else, I've been around longer than they all have. But we volunteers, and by the way, if you want to come to Nashville and help, on all the material, there are phone numbers you can call and say, "I want to come down," or "My family wants to come down," or "We want to bring a group down," and work out a schedule, and be happy to have you to do that. We've had volunteers come as far away as Boston. Had a young man that went with me on a mission trip to Jamaica when he graduated from high school. And he went to college to become a preacher, and he's preaching in Iowa. And he brought a group of young people down from wherever he lives in Iowa and helped out. So volunteers come from everywhere, and we just want to help. And let me mention too that all disasters are not floods, or hurricanes, or tornadoes, or wildfires. You remember a couple of years ago a train wreck in New Palestine, Ohio? Bad chemicals spilled, ruined everything. They couldn't use their water. Water supplies just gone. Well, there's no church in New Palestine, no Church of Christ. But there is one a few miles away in Christiana. So we contacted them and said, "If you folks want to help the people in New Palestine, we'll send the water. If you can find a place there that we can unload and you can distribute it." And they said, "We'll gladly do that." And so we sent just water up there to New Palestine to help the folks out during that crisis. So disasters come in all shapes and forms, and we're ready to respond to all of them. I need to quit at quarter till. I probably won't hear it. I've just about totally lost a hearing in my left ear, and I wear a hearing aid, and sometimes it doesn't help out that much. But anyway, after the follow-up, churches follow up, and people lost everything they have. And if they did not have insurance on their personal items, their household items, and their income was below a certain level, we can provide appliances, furniture, beds. And that's up to the local church to do that, to follow up. And when they first help somebody, we get sent a form, and on that form, what did you lose? And I said, well, we lost our refrigerator, we lost our cook stove, we lost the washing machine, what all? So in the follow-up, if these people don't have insurance, then this church compiles a list of the families that have these needs. They'll call us, say we need this number of whatever it may be, appliances, or we need this number of living room furniture, or we need this number of beds, and we'll order it, pay for it, and it'll be shipped from the company to that congregation to distribute to the people who have need. I was talking to a lady once, and she said, I have a brother that for some reason he just despises the churches of Christ. And I told him that after this disaster, Churches of Christ Disaster Relief want to send new appliances. He said, no, they won't send new appliances. They'll send old, used, beat-up appliances. And, of course, when the truck from the manufacturer came and unloaded the appliances, she called her brother and said, I want you to come over here and help us to open the cartons on these used appliances. And he was shocked that they were not used. They were new. Everything that we send out is new. When a major disasters happen, a lot of times people will call, so you got a truck going to such and such. We got a trailer load of clothing we'll bring down and give you to take on that truck. And we'll say, no, appreciate where your heart is wanting to help, but we'll not take used clothing. We buy new clothing that we take, because we want everything given away to be new, unused, and something that can really bring glory to God because of what the church is doing. So, and when you look over that yellow sheet, you'll see that a year after the disaster, we're still sending furniture, beds, and appliances. Brian Spicer, who works with us down in Louisiana, after Hurricane Harvey a few years ago, he said, we got a call, and a family finally, after 5 years, got their house repaired to where they can move back in, but they need appliances. 5 years after Harvey, we provided the appliances for that family. So as long as the church calls us and says, we have a need, we'll send that to them, meet their needs, and do it with a smile on their face. I did hear that bell. So that's quitting time.
I think we might have another 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Now, Betty and I, we live in Charlestown, West Virginia. You may not know where it's at. A lot of times I say that people don't hear Charlestown, they hear Charleston. I said, no, we don't have anything to do with the capital. We're up in the Eastern Panhandle. We're only 65 miles from Washington, D.C. And I showed some friends that, and they said, that's too close. I wouldn't be that close to D.C. But the area that I work with is Kentucky and Virginia, north to Canada, the Atlantic Ocean, west to the Mississippi River, with the exception of Wisconsin and Illinois. I used to cover those 2 states, but our guy in Missouri can do a better job there than I can. And so have a large area that I cover. I visit churches. Every year I make 3 trips to New England. In March, there's an Inspire New England workshop. In May, there's a lectureship. In June, there's a big men's retreat that I get up there to those, and I'll go to other times as well. I heard the second bell, so I guess I'd better sit down. Thank you.